Welcome to another edition of the 49er GoldCast.
San Francisco, are you ready? Boom! Welcome to another edition of the 49er GoldCast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Salisa first, baby.
And no esteemed co-host,
In
2
spirit.
weeks in a row.
He's with us in spirit.
He is with us in spirit. We miss you a lot, Old Man Davis. Old Man Davis will be returning week 3 of preseason. We will get Old Man Davis back. But for now, it's the Solis brothers, the 49er faithful here, live and direct in stereo. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, here we go.
Stereo podcast.
Yeah, shout out to Michael Rappaport. So here we go. Week 1 of the preseason is in the books. And we learned a lot about, at least about the playing mechanics. As you know, faithful, it doesn't really matter who wins these games. Really what we're looking for, and I speak for the both of us, we're really looking for how players are playing, how they're reacting to just basic drills. I mean, they're basically going through really basic plays out there. And I'm just looking at how their mechanics are working, how they're playing, how's their athleticism, how is their reaction to the speed of the game, both on offense and defense. And I think we learned a lot. First off, from me, the first thing, let's just throw it out with the negative. Number 1, I was a little worried about Blaine's throwing mechanics. He seemed off. There were really basic passes that he was attempting, and he was struggling with them. And the reason this kind of freaked me out, Ray, is because I saw Kaepernick do this 2 years ago and have a horrible season. I saw him messing up with some of the same basic throws. So he
was very jittery. I don't know if it was jittery nerves because it's like he got the spotlight. Cap's not even in the picture at this point, and even though it's preseason, you're still vying for a roster spot, and you're actually vying for the most important roster spot on the entire team. So I don't know if that had something to do with it, but either way, you've been in the league for several years now, so you need to come to terms with this, because he talks the talk very well. He's very confident. He's very sophisticated and articulate when he talks to the press. So you get the impression that he's psychologically prepared, but I just didn't see that in the first 2 series that he played.
He seemed to get it together a little bit later. Similar to Kaepernick, rushing the ball seemed to put him at ease and give him a little bit of confidence and make him feel like he was contributing to the game. And then you saw a little bit more confidence when he came back to the throwing. But I have to admit, it's still preseason. I mean, it's the first frickin' plays of the season with so much football left.
Grain of salt. I mean, because Chip Kelly's offense is less about pass and more about a balance between run and pass. Mm-hmm. So it's all about rhythm, getting familiar with live game time. So that's part of it too. We have a brand new system that's being implemented here. So now we've been practicing in training camp. We've been practicing against our own defense. Now for the first time we get our live taste of it against another NFL defense, a team that, and all of this is going to be all of this is live. This is on TV. This is real time. There are no takebacks. Any decision that you make is going to have a lasting impression on the plays proceeding. So the stakes are higher for sure. And so this is the first time. So perhaps there was some jitters there. I don't necessarily think it should be excused, but at the same time, we got to take it with a grain of salt because it is exhibition, and exhibition is the least important for most of the number ones. With the exception to the quarterback role this time around and a few of the other roles on offensive line. We don't know who the main 3 backs are, though it looks like right now the lead is between Hyde, Drone, and Mike Davis in that order. So, but there's a lot of takeaways. Wasn't thoroughly impressed with receivers. Didn't see a whole lot happen there. It happened later in the game, but again, those are third teams, fourth teams. So the opposition that they're dealing with is much less than. So obviously there's going to be a difference in talent. So we saw that in the second half, but didn't see much of it in the first half. So it's hard to, there's still a lot to work out. And I'm not saying that people should be disappointed, but you should be observant of some of these things because this is all going to eventually have to come together, in September.
Well, see, and that's what I'm talking about. It felt a little Colin Kaepernick-ish, and it made me nervous because I remember the first year we started seeing this happen, which was, I believe, Harbaugh's last year. And everyone was saying, oh, Cap looked a little rough, but we kept saying, oh, it's preseason. Who cares? It's preseason. Who cares? It's preseason. And something our father, Rudy Solis Jr., said, something very, very important that has become my mantra about preseason, is that you can look great in the preseason and play great in the regular season. You can look great in the preseason and play far worse in the regular season. But here's the one thing you can't do. You can't look terrible in the preseason and then play great in the regular season. That just doesn't really happen. That's not something that happens. If you are struggling in preseason, you are not going to turn it up against the pros, against the starters on all these teams, especially in a division like the NFC West.
Right.
See, so when we saw Cap struggling with some really basic quarterback mechanics in the preseason, everyone was cause for alarm. We're the 49er faithful. We even talked about a little bit on that first year of the GoldCast that we were like, oh, not a big deal. It's preseason. He's just kind of working out some kinks. But boy, did all of that come back to rear its ugly head and bite us in the ass for the rest of the season. So I know it's just the first quarter. It's just getting some of those jitters out. But I had my doubts about Blaine Gabbert last year. If you look, his interception rate, his interception numbers went up as the season went on. And, I'm not sure if either of these quarterbacks are the answer, but it just made me nervous to see Blaine Gabbert missing on some basic passes. And hopefully it's nerves. And hopefully next week we're going to get a much calmer Blaine Gabbert and we're going to get a more focused Blaine Gabbert. I thought Eric Davis said something pretty poignant on the NFL Network today in the post-game review. He said that this job, in his opinion, is basically it's Blaine Gabbert's to keep, but he's not making it easy for anybody in terms of the decision, the way he played today. And I agreed with that. I thought that was a fair statement.
Yeah, he could have really drove a dagger into the narrow lead that he has right now, but instead he just kind of going to probably have coaches scratching his head if it continues. And if Cap does the same, or if he does better, then yeah, he's going to lose outright.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I want him to lose. I want the best player to earn the spot. So it doesn't matter whether that's Cap, great. If it's not, great. If it's Gabbert, awesome. If it's not Gabbert, awesome. It doesn't matter. Whoever's the better player needs to be there. So there's no he's getting 11 million, so he needs to be there. No, I'm a fan, so I'm gonna put the finances aside because they don't apply to me as a fan. What applies to me is the result of the game and who's putting us in the best position to win.
Yes, 100%. I agree 100%. So let's start talking about some of the positives, though, because I feel like there were a lot of positives coming out of that first and second quarter.
Totally. For me, it really has to come down to defense because the only score that the Texans acquired in the first half was by fault of the offense. So the offense was very, very shaky. It did come together at one point, but it did kind of look a little reminiscent of last year, albeit the offensive line played a lot better. And anything that we saw at this point was going to more likely look far better than what we saw last year in the offensive line. But for me, it was defense, and the defense, with the exception of the offensive fumble that led to a touchdown, the defense was shut them out. And once again, this looks like it might be another one of those years where the defense kind of carries the team. We'll just see how well the offense comes together because it's only been one game. It's a new scheme. Everybody loves it. I like it. I like the pace of it. It's not as eat up time as people think it is because the scoring drive, here's the one thing to pay attention to. That scoring drive, that was an 80-yard drive, and that took up over 4 minutes. So it took up nearly a third of a quarter just to pull off. So keep that in mind. All the naysayers that like to say Kelly's up-tempo offense does not utilize clock time. It really does, because it's a balance. When you're throwing and running at the same time, you're more than likely going to be eat up a lot of clock time. What's going to make the opposite of that is very successful plays. So if the defense doesn't do their job and allows 30, 40-yard gains, then yeah, sure, you're going to lose up a lot of time. But that's no fault of the offense. That's the fault of the defense that's supposed to be stopping us.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I don't want them to do that.
Exactly. What did you think about that secondary? Because you have often talked about Jim O'Neill's work with the secondary. How did you think about that secondary play out there today? I thought that they looked pretty good.
That was great. It was great. No picks, but I'm sure those will come. Those will come. Picks are so hard to come by already, because the cornerback is. Here's the thing we got to keep in mind: the cornerback position is the second hardest position to play next to the quarterback, because you're supposed to know almost as much as the quarterback outside of every other position. So it's a really tough role. You don't know where the receiver is going. The receiver knows where he's supposed to go. So your speed has to be your best friend, because you have to keep pace with this guy. You have to cut when he cuts. You have to turn when he turns. You have to spin when he spins, and you have to jump when he jumps. So it's a very instinctual position. So these are some of the most athletic positions on the entire team. So what I saw from them, and again, the reason why I like what I saw, because this is Jim O'Neill's specialty. This is his specialty. Sure, he helped the Bills lead the league in sacks the year he was there, but he also his real bread and butter is secondary. This is where he excels. He made improvements with the Jets. He made improvements with the Browns, and I saw a lot of improvement with the Niners. Jimmy Ward looks lightning fast, faster than he did last year. I mean, he was going toe to toe with Hopkins. He couldn't even get anything. Barely anything. I don't think he got. Anything, did he? Let me see here. No, he did not.
Boom.
Well, actually, no. Hopkins is their best receiver. Was Strong, Blenard, Humphrey, Frederick Hunts, Steven Tyler Fuller. So I don't know where I'm even getting the name Hopkins. Maybe I heard it on the commentary. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. The point is, Ward played really well. Some of the third and fourth stringers did not play very well. I saw a lot of missed tackles, missed blitzes. Oh, yeah. It was pretty sloppy. Got really sloppy in the second half. But then again, this is third team, fourth team. These are guys that will end up being practice squad or cut. You got to remember this. Half these guys are going to get cut at the end of the day. So
yeah, sure.
I really like the defense. The defense is going to carry us a lot. I want to see a little bit more from the pass rush. I want to see a little bit more from the middle linebacker group. It seems like the defensive line is going to be kind of the star pass rushers this time around, versus the way it was in the Harbaugh era, where the linebackers were those players. So the front seven's still going to be very good, but I think it's going to be carried by the defensive line versus the linebackers, and then the secondary will be the next tier to really lead that group.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about the group that I was very impressed with.
Yeah, who stood out to you?
So who stood out to me? I agree with all your sentiments 100%, but the people who stood out to me, the players that stood out to me today, were the running backs and the offensive line. Mm-hmm. I was very impressed. Mike Davis, oh man, they said that he had lost some weight. I mean, he was so fast.
I thought he was fast before, too.
Me too. He was aggressive. I really think that what they have to do, the key to this season, and it sounds like from everything we're reading, this is where they're going to go. The key to this season is running back by committee. You've got to, you cannot put all of the toll on Carlos Hyde. It's too much. We're not really sure if his body can even handle it. And with so many good running backs back there, there's no reason to. There's no reason whatsoever. I like the idea of Carlos Hyde, Mike Davis, and Sean Drone being the running backs that carry the team. And I think that there is so much talent between the three of those guys. I was so impressed. They played hungry. They played hard. It looked like all three of them were fighting for the starting job. Like they wanted it, and they wanted it bad. And I was very impressed with their level of play.
Yeah, that's the trio that I really see, and rightfully so. They played in the exact order. Although I might even say Mike Davis has got a little bit more oomph in his step over Sean Drone.
Yes, I agree with that.
He's a little bit more explosive. That was evident. But again, you know what I mean? We're all seeing this in live for the first time. The coaches are seeing this live for the first time just as we are. So they're getting this. They're having the same, evaluating epiphanies that we're having now to a large degree. And some of this they've already probably anticipated too with the practices and stuff. But it's all tinkering. It's all science. It's all trying to work out the kinks, finding out which formula works out the best. But yeah, for me, I agree with you too that those three are very good. Mike Davis is lightning. He's very explosive, almost as explosive as Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde is a mixture of that fast. He's fast, but it's a different type of speed because he's a hybrid of speed and power because he can pummel you, and Jerome's got power too. Don't get me wrong. So it was really good to see. The offensive line looks great. I think they're going to have some good, tough decisions to make, which, by the way, is a quality problem. If you're going to have problems, you want good. There's good problems and there's bad problems. If you can't figure out if you have more than one player that's making a point or making a case to start on your offensive line, that's a good problem to have.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Definitely agreed. I thought the running backs were great. I thought the O-line did a much better job than before. I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. Just seeing that, I think this is even as early as preseason. It's an obvious upgrade from where we were last year, and I would say, looking, possibly, maybe an upgrade from the year before because we weren't that great in Harbaugh's last year either. So that
We
was
weren't, but the team was deteriorating at that point.
It was, and it was time for the inevitable blow up and reboot that we are in now. It's a young team. I'm excited to see where they go. I think that they played very well for just opening day. Again, I am still worried about Blaine Gabbert. Let me ask you this: with Colin Kaepernick injured and on the sideline, how open is this door for Blaine Gabbert right now?
I think it's wide open. The question is he going to take advantage of it? Because it didn't seem like it seemed like nerves got the best of him this day. Because it's not like this is how it's nerves. It's one thing if you don't have the skill set. We know he has the skill set. Yes. So it's like now let's put him in an environment where he can utilize those skill sets. So there was one pass in the second series where he threw to the feet of, I think it was DeAndre White. I'm not entirely sure. It's irrelevant who he was throwing to. The point is he threw low, and he did have pressure coming his way, but it was the same side. So when the blitz is coming from that side, the blitz is coming from that side. The good quarterbacks in the NFL will take advantage of it by throwing the ball to the receiver that guy would normally be covering. So that's why it's a risk. The defense is taking a risk to say we're going to leave this guy free, but this guy's going to get to the quarterback before he throws the ball off. And he was coming off of Blaine Gabbert's blind side because Gabbert is right-handed. So that's the other advantage too. He needs more time to look that way and throw that way than he would if it was coming from his right. It was coming from his left. He looks stepped. Didn't have time, and what does he do? He underthrows it. Why? Yeah. Psychologically, he got psyched out. He was thinking of the hit coming in, which by the way, Kaepernick is allergic to this too for whatever reason. A lot of quarterbacks are. It's scary out there. These guys are over 200 pounds. If they hit you, it's not going to feel good. But at the same time, the good quarterbacks persevere and say, "Screw it. It's not about me. It's about the play." And he did not do that. And he picked it up in the second half. But 4 for 10. Come on. And granted, there's going to be games where he's going to be like that too. And the question is, will he have the wherewithal and the fortitude to kind of come out of that when he needs to?
Yes, agreed. I was impressed with his ability to get some yards with his feet and keep fighting. And I thought that was good. I'm impressed with his athleticism. I'm impressed with his fight and his grit. But I am nervous about his psychological gameplay, and I'm nervous about those mechanics. Those are basic throws. Those were basic throws. They went out there and said, all right, we're just going to do some basics right now. A couple slants, just some basic passes. And it was not a good opening. And obviously, if we see it, the coaching staff sees it. Blaine Gabbert sees it. So hopefully this week is a bounce back week. He can learn from that, look at the tape, and then we come out much more confident, much more prepared, and ready to really prove that he deserves a starting job.
Yeah, and here's the thing. you mentioned something earlier that really stood out to me. You said he felt most comfortable when he was running the ball himself,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're in
Very
that,
Kaepernick.
yes, very Kaepernick-like. And to be honest, this even goes beyond this. Predates Kaepernick. This is the Steve Young syndrome. When Steve Young first came, who we're going to talk about later, by the way, but when Steve Young first came on the scene, he did not trust his receivers, didn't trust his throwing talent, as he eventually came to do. But when he didn't do that, what did he do? He tucked the ball and he ran, because he knew that if he had the ball and he was controlling the situation, he could at least get some yardage on the ground with his feet versus his hand. It wasn't until he's matured into the throwing role that he won 6 passing titles in a row. But so that's why it's the Steve Young syndrome, where you don't trust you're lacking confidence in your throwing ability, and you also don't trust your receivers on the other end. And so what do? You take it on yourself, and you say, well, I know I can get it done with my legs, and I know that's a surefire thing, because I have the ball, so I'm just going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so once if these two guys can learn how to separate the two, then sky's the limit. But it's hard, because in this NFL era, where legs are now kind of a standard, like you got to have some running power. The classic drop back quarterback like Tom Brady or Dan Marino, that those guys are few and far between. Now pretty much all quarterbacks have some running ability, and it's the ones who can learn how to hone the passing side of it that really become great, not just good, great.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is a wonderful example of a guy who can beat you with his legs and isn't afraid to beat you with his legs, but his mastery of the pocket is what truly separates him from the rest of the league.
Yeah, and he figured it out early, to be honest, and he actually waited 3 years before he even got the opportunity. Steve Young had to wait too, and still needed time to mature. It only took him a couple years, but he had to do it. So
Okay, so here's a question, Raymond. So do you feel like, I mean, I think Jared Goff on Saturday, I mean, how much they kicked his ass left and right is another great example of the question I'm about to ask you. Do you think that perhaps, I mean, is it just too much pressure on these young quarterbacks? Is just the game just too fast? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of both. It's a combination of transitioning from the college level to the pro level. To be honest, Jared Goff, everyone thinks he's going to be the next, Aaron Rodgers, and it's like, I don't see that. I'm not saying he's overrated. I just think that the anticipatory predictions are a little premature.
Yes.
Because this guy, if he puts it in another year at college, then I think those predictions are a little bit more. There's a little bit more merit behind him, because it's like he's had a little bit more polish in the oven. But now he's coming a year prematurely, and he's coming into a league where doesn't necessarily have the best offensive line, doesn't necessarily have a great core of receivers. His defense has been depleted of its potent veterans. So this team is, even though they were 7-9 last year,
Which they've been for the entire time of Jeff Fisher's run.
Yeah, Jeff Fisher is terrific at winning half the games of the season. If you want to win half of the games of the season, that's the guy you hire. There's no one more consistent than Jeff Fisher. He's terrific at it.
If you want to look amazing in your own division and mediocre in every other division, Jeff Fisher's your guy.
Jeff Fisher's your guy. Yeah, that's the pitch. Be like, how many games? Well, we're hoping to win at least half. I know the perfect coach. So yeah, I think it's a combination of A, he's just not ready, and B, it's a huge rude awakening because you're coming from D1 in your junior year, not D1 in your senior year.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're playing with, the most polished guys of your class. Everyone still has a year more to go. So, and a lot of guys do that. It's not like he's an exception to the rule. A lot of guys go prematurely. It's hard to, it'd be hard for me to turn down that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some guys don't do that. Look what happened though. Peyton Manning said, no, I'm going to wait another year. Look how that turned out. Turned out pretty damn good.
Right.
But here's the thing. He's going to go through growing pains. He's not going to just come out and kick the league's ass. You know what I mean? There's even,
that's a once in a generation quarterback that can do that. And it's very rare.
And what's his name with the Colts? Why can I not remember his name? The Colts quarterback.
Andrew Luck?
Yes, Andrew Luck. I mean, that was a guy that I knew was going to come out because he was going to come out and play well. But even his first year, he threw as many picks as he did touchdowns, if not more picks. He was terrible. He was terrible. His touchdown to interception ratio was terrible. It was like 50-50. So he still had great instincts, and he played for 4 full years in college, so he had a lot of polish. So a lot of that prediction was well received. Even I bought into that. It's like, I kind of can see that he's also coming into a pretty decent team that has some good pieces in place already. They just need to patch up some holes, and then they should be good to go, which they've shown. He's been to the playoffs. So last year was a disaster, but before that he was in the playoffs 2 years in a row. So
he was also injured last year.
He was beat up. They were all beat up. They were just injury is one of those injury seasons, happens to every team. It's just particularly devastating when it's a multitude of players like it was for the Colts. But in Goff's case, say what you want, and we're gonna have our other member Louis on, not old
maybe
Matt
week
Davis,
3, maybe week 4. I know by the end of preseason we'll definitely be getting Louis, our resident Los Angeles Rams fan, onto the GoldCast.
Because he can speak more. I'd like to hear his opinion too. This is he's pretty analytical too, like me. So there's some similarity in how we view the game. So I think logically he'll kind of see some of the things I'm seeing, but he'll also add his own 2 cents on what he's seen too. Because remember, he's paying as much attention to the Rams as we are to the Niners. I'm not necessarily following Goff. I'm kind of loosely following, and kind of gathering information from what you tell me or what the news says or what I see on NFL Network while waiting to hear Niner news.
Yes, exactly.
So it's not necessarily that I'm intentionally doing it, but I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, just in a nutshell, kind of reiterating again, he's just not ready.
No, he's not. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the regular season with him, Gabbert, and Kaepernick. Now, let me ask you
think about what you said. You can't play bad in preseason and expect to do good in the regular season. So
no, it doesn't go that direction.
This isn't looking too well for Goff so far.
So we'll see what the next game brings, because I'm sure Rams pundits would say the same thing about Blaine Gabbert. Do you think Colin Kaepernick is going to get some reps? Is he going to be able to play?
Yeah, so it depends on his health, because he's got this unexpected injury, and it's just from him just not being in rhythm. He's just out of rhythm, so his muscles are out of.
Well, they talked about how skinny he looked, and he did.
Yeah, and he's out of that muscle memory rhythm, so he has to reestablish that, which is why his arm kind of tightened up a bit, because he just hasn't been throwing at all. He hasn't been doing anything for months. You got to remember that. That's why he lost all. I mean, when I say you, I mean like fans. You guys got to keep that in mind. That Kaepernick hasn't been doing this for months, and that's why he looks skinny, because he lost a bunch of muscle because he couldn't do anything. 3 surgeries, 3 different areas on your body. Yeah, sure. Anyone's going to lose weight at that point. So I think he's going to get some start time, but it really depends on how this week turns out. They might flip flop and say, all right, let's get Cap looks good this week. Let's give him a go. But they might play it safe and give another one to Gabbert. I would not be surprised either way.
I wouldn't be surprised either way too. We'll see what happens. I'm curious. I'm looking forward to weeks 2 and 3 and seeing more and more of the starters. And then, of course, I mean, I know you. I just cannot wait till September 12th. I cannot wait.
Yes, that's when it all comes down. Because, we saw the first half of this preseason. That's somewhat of a glimpse into what we can expect, albeit I expect it to be a lot more polished than what we saw today. Just because these guys have bought into the system, they're into this, they're really into it. That's what the consensus has been between interviews. That's been the feedback from players to coaches, and that's what the reporters have been telling all of us. So this is, and when everybody's buying in like that, it all comes together a lot easier. It's easier for things to gel. So I expect it to be a lot more polished when September 12th comes along.
I agree. Now looking ahead just slightly. We keep teasing about picks. We're not going to do our early predictions. We're going to do all that. We're saving that for the end of preseason. But they did talk about the first 5 weeks of the 49ers regular schedule. So I want to just take a sneak peek. I don't want us to pick, but I just want to comment on what it looks like, because it is fucking brutal. Pardon my language. We are at week 1, Rams at home, Monday night. Boom, ESPN, big game. Week 2 at Carolina against the Panthers, followed by week 3 at Seattle against the Seahawks. Cowboys at home, Cardinals at home. That is a who's who of
that's a horseshit schedule. Man.
It is, man. Like, and it's, I get it. Listen, in case you guys haven't noticed by now, the San Francisco 49ers are a major major money draw for the NFL. There's a reason we were on prime time on Sunday, the last NFL preseason game of week 1. There's a reason we're in that slot. There's a reason why every time you see a video game or any type of large NFL commercial, you see the 49ers SF emblem somewhere at the front. There is a reason every single time we are front and center. It's us.
There's a reason you see all the teams that you see, and there's a reason you don't see some other teams.
Yeah, here's who you always see. You always see the 49ers. You always see the Cowboys. You always see the Packers and the Giants, and a lot of times the Patriots. Like those are like the five.
And whoever won the most recent Super Bowl.
Exactly. But you're always going to see those 5 teams. You're going to see the Cowboys. You're going to see the Giants. You're going to see the Niners. You're going to see the Packers, and then you'll see the Bears a lot too. Bears is another one that is very common. So those are those 5 or 6 teams. There's a reason. I was talking about that earlier. I was like, why we're the last team playing in preseason? Because we're the best. Because we're the 49ers.
You save the best for last.
Save the best for last. There's a reason we are the opening Monday night game against the Los Angeles Rams, because we're the best.
Yeah, weren't we the first Monday night game last year too?
I believe so. And actually, it
was against Minnesota, wasn't it? It was even our week 1 game.
Candlestick Park had the record for most Monday night games of all time. The 49ers have played more Monday night games. I don't know if it's Candlestick. I believe it was Candlestick. I don't know. Similar to Rappaport, we don't fact check anything on this podcast. I believe we had more Monday night games than any other stadium was Candlestick, because we're the best. Mm-hmm. And because we're a huge moneymaker draw. We're one of the premier franchises of the league. It's why we're in these spots.
Have been for decades.
So here we are, these first 5, and that's another reason why we're playing all these teams is, well, A, 2 of these teams are in our division, but B, the 49ers are just a huge draw. It's just one of those teams. It's the way, similar to the Cowboys, whether it's in good seasons or bad seasons, people want to see the 49ers. So it does not surprise me that you've got Rams, Panthers, Seahawks, Cowboys, Cardinals, but Raymond, that is so brutal. Yeah, they're just killing us. They front-loaded the first half of the season with just everybody, man. And we have they mentioned this on NFL Network. We have the hardest schedule of the entire league, and even the second half doesn't get easier. But I'm not even going to get into it. But I just want to hear some of your thoughts about it, without any picks. Just your thoughts on those first 5 weeks, 5 weeks of death.
I think it's bullshit. That's what I think. I think it's rough. It's like, hey, I don't care. It's very indicative of how the NFL is to rookie players coming into the league. It is unforgiving, and it doesn't matter how good you were in college, how bad you were in college. Doesn't matter what your projected talent's going to be. The NFL is going to hit you like a steam train. It's just going to hit you hard. Doesn't matter what. So it doesn't matter whether the league. It's like, I don't care if you're rebuilding. You're still going to play. You still have to play somebody. So you're going to play. We're gonna get those growing pains out of you real. Here's the good part. We're going to get all that pain out early.
Oh yeah, everyone's going to grow up fast.
Yes.
So, final segment of the evening. The last thing I want to talk about is a player that I know is near and dear to your heart, Raymond. Arguably your favorite player.
Yeah, he's pretty close to it.
The NFL Network during the game today released a 1-minute trailer for this season's A Football Life, and it's an episode starring Steve Young. We finally get the football life for Steve Young. How excited are you, and what did you think about that trailer?
I think it's great because it's one of the greatest underdog stories of all time. Because regardless of whether he could match Joe is irrelevant. The fact that he was able to even get a quarter of that, which is technically what he got, is still very impressive because Joe is just on another level of greatness, and
only one quarterback has even come close, and his team had to cheat to get there.
Exactly, which is much like Harry Potter's adversary. How he often went under the moniker of "he who we shall not name." We shall also not name that individual who likes to claim the top spot nowadays, but we all know that that's not true. But going back to Steve, it's one of the greatest underdog stories of all time because I've actually seen like an hour-long documentary on that I watched on my own time. That I actually went out and looked for it on YouTube and found it and said, "Oh, I want to see this story because I've never seen it before." And I did it because there wasn't a football life on Steve Young, so I was like, I want to watch something. I figured they would have gotten to Steve by this point, but they hadn't, so I went out and found something else. I'm just really excited to see it because NFL Films is such a high quality film studio. Their production values off the charts. Their cinematography is really good. The shots are great. The way they capture the highlights, the way they slow it down, the way they've got all of this backlog of classic. I want to see the Vikings run that really kind of put Steve on the map
that's like your play
when he was getting like run out of town. That's what made it so great, is because like he was getting run out of town. He was getting booed that same game. They were booing him to sit his ass down the same way they've booed Kaepernick in recent years. And at the end of the day, he ended up setting a record that Cap ended up breaking by like 2 yards, but it still doesn't compare to the way Steve Young pulled off that same run. But it's cool because it's a really cool story. I'm not going to get into it because I want to let NFL Films get into it, but I know the story of Steve Young, and it's pretty remarkable. The adversity he went through to get to where he got to and was still able to do what he did is pretty damn impressive.
It is. It's very impressive. It gave me chills to see him walking through the remnants of Candlestick Park. He's often compared Candlestick Park to Fenway, and often compared to that as like this small, kind of dingy, dirty little place that magic just always happened. It started with the catch. It ended with the interception, the pick at the stick, and that place was magical. And I miss Candlestick, and seeing him walk through the remnants gave me chills. Seeing the moment where they were playing the moment of him raising up and the final score 28-38, Niners defeated the Cowboys to head to their fifth Super Bowl, and to hear John Madden talking about how he's the best and he's fighting the monkey off his back. And to see Steve's face as he's watching the film in the theater, it just gave me chills. I am so excited. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's on NFL.com. NFL Network. You can see the trailer up. I encourage you to see it and check it out. Raymond, let's definitely post that trailer to the GoldCast.
Totally. I think I know a lot of Niner fans, we all go to Joe first, rightfully so. But here's the thing: if you ever had any kind of doubt, or if you never appreciated Steve Young the same way you did Joe, there will always be a disparity. However, I think watching this film will really help people understand what he went through, and so if you see that and then couple it with what he was able to accomplish, you're going to appreciate him almost on a similar level as Joe. Because Joe didn't necessarily have a quarterback controversy to come into. He just kind of came in and was expected to take over for a shitty team. Where
Yes.
Steve was supposed to come in and take over for a great team and take over for a great quarterback. And he knew that too. He knew that. Steve Young never shysted on Joe Montana. He never talked shit about Joe Montana. He was just competitive and as greedy as Joe Montana to prove himself.
Yep, exactly. So we're definitely going to do a full review once that episode comes out. I can't wait. Final note, we're way over time, but final note, I wanted to get this out. Our father, the unofficial fourth member, Rudy Solis Jr., did mention one story that we did not touch on last week, was that Eddie D, upon it being announced that he was entering the Hall of Fame, he received a package from Bill Walsh's son. And when he opened the package, there was a small football helmet and a picture, and then a signed note that said, "Congratulations, I always knew you'd make it. And congrats on being in." And it was signed.
It was only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time, and it was signed by Bill Walsh. And I mean, honestly, I forgot about that. I don't know how we didn't talk about that first.
Straight Obi-Wan Yoda clairvoyance.
Honestly, how much do you think Eddie D cried when he saw that? He had to just bawl his eyes out.
Knowing how emotional Eddie D already is, and how family oriented he was, and how family oriented everybody else was during that era, I'm sure he did.
I mean,
more than once.
It choked me up. It gave me chills. And at that moment, what's amazing is that Bill talked to Eddie one last time. Yeah. All these years later. Like, that conversation and that moment was real for them, and it happened in that moment, it's like time travel almost. You know what I mean? It was, I don't know, that sounds corny, but just being really honest about it, the fact that they were able to have that conversation and that Bill was able to congratulate him and that he saved that note and he waited and he sent it and Bill knew and Bill was able to congratulate him in real time. I think that's probably the most beautiful story that came out of Eddie D's Hall
Totally.
of Fame. Bill Walsh, a class act. I believe he's the greatest coach of all time.
Joe Montana of coaches.
Yeah, Belichick has called him the greatest coach of all time. I do believe he's the most innovative. No coach would be here. The entire passing game, as we know it, wouldn't
Exactly.
exist.
Bill Belichick wouldn't be Bill Belichick if it wasn't for Bill Walsh.
Yeah, Bill Walsh is the man. So we're going to end it on that high note. Again, we want to encourage everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the GoldCast. Subscribe us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. To keep up with every GoldCast, stay close to the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/49ers GoldCast. Raymond updates it constantly with 49er news. Definitely keep up. We like to talk. We like to debate on there. Raymond, tell them everywhere they can find us.
You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/49ers GoldCast. You can also follow us on Twitter at 49ers GoldCast. You can also subscribe to us via YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher to be on top of the latest and greatest episodes as they become live to the public in all of its glory.
And then Raymond, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ray Solis. You can also... actually, that's it, because my other accounts are for business purposes. I don't necessarily talk sports.
There you go. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Rudy Solis 3rd, Rudy Solis 3RD. And you can also find me on Facebook as Rudy Solis. Definitely check out the 49er Goldcast on Twitter as well. We're on everything. Follow, we follow you back. We follow everybody that follows us back. So make sure that you're following us and that you're staying in tune with our Goldcasts. So, Raymond, I guess that's it for today. We're not going to be here next week, week 2, but we will be back week 3. Week 3, we'll be back. We'll be doing a big recap. Old Man Davis will be joining us. Maybe we'll get Louie on. I know Louie will be here for the regular season, but Old Man Davis will return week 3 to argue and fight with us.
That's right. We are honoring a special event next week, until we won't be around. However, you guys still need to take advantage of checking out the 49ers live on KPX Channel 5 in Denver, August 20th, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific daytime. Check it out, because you're going to want to pay attention to those first and second teams. So the first half is the most important. Second half, you're just kind of trying to figure out who else is going to make the roster. That's the importance there.
Exactly. So concludes another edition of the 49er Goldcast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! We'll see you in 2 weeks. Same Goldcast time, same Goldcast channel. And we are